everyone! Have you flown recently between delayed flights, cramped sitting, bag fees, and the depressing lack of snacks? Airplanes have lost their mid-century glamour, but what if you could spend a lot less time on a plane you might not remember? But there was a plane called Concorde that flew fast, like really fast. It had a cruising speed of 1,354 miles per hour, which is twice the speed of sound, also known as Mach 2. A flight from New York to London, which typically takes 7 hours, would only take 3.5 hours going supersonic on a Concorde. Sadly, the Concorde is long gone. Its finally flight touched down in 2003, and since then the Concorde sonic boom has mostly set it from memory. That's all about to change. A half of dozen startups are gambling on a return of supersonic air travel. A new aviation law could help speed that comeback. There are questions. Of course, it will be affordable or only for rich. What about the environment, and why does anyone need to go that fast? But there's no question that supersonic air travel is crushing back into popularity. So a little bit of history. First supersonic all-weather range in the 1960s, when testing first began for commercial flights, but the plane struggled with high cost and pollution concerns. Ultimately, only the one plane saw a long-term commercial success, a collaboration between British and French companies called the Concorde. But Concorde's maiden voyage is 1976 kicked off a new era of luxury air travel. Ticket could cost about to $12,000 round trip, which includes gourmet meals and a chance to rub elbows with politicians and celebrities. But the biggest selling point was speed, which twice daily service from London to New York. It wasn't uncommon for business people to take day trips and return home before the bars and pub closed. The concert ultimately went out of business for a couple reasons in July of 2000. A Concorde jet operated by Air France blew up shortly after takeoff, killing 113 in just a year later. The September 11th attack caused a major setback for the aviation industry. The Concorde never recovered, but almost 15 years later, in 2013, NASA began funding a new research project aimed at reviving supersonics. That funding was modest, only about $2.3 million, but the projects all tackled a different technical challenge facing supersonic travel. For example, which plenty of people want to fly faster than sound. No one wants those planes flying over their homes. In fact, Congress passed the law in 1973 banning supersonic flight from US soil. That's because supersonic aircraft create a trail of defending sound called a boom carpet. As a plane noise pushes into air, it flies aside air molecules and waves of pressure like a boat, creating a wave. When those waves hit the landscape, they create a loud booming noise that could sometimes damage property. NASA wants to figure out how to muffle the sonic booms. It split initial test between Texas and Florida, since air behaves differently at different temperatures and different humidities, and it awarded a $247.5 million contract to Lockheed Martin to develop a quieter supersonic plane. That research may find a foothold sound, because right now the FAA is concerning lifting a 1973 ban on civil supersonic flight. President Trump is enthusiastic, and the aviation industry can't wait. Supersonic air travel, it seems, is coming back into York. Samuel Hammond is a research fellow at the Liberation think tank that specializes in aviation theory. A couple of years ago, he had a colleague published a paper called "Make America Boom Again." Yeah, I know. Anyways, he thinks supersonic air travel could create a new global possibilities far beyond more simple business travel. How cool you may have a very specific NBA. You know, the team played a few games and LA was going the game same day. The way Hammond sees it, the whole industry need to be the rethought. With also, I think more important is how doing a real patient in aviation innovation will inspire people to recognize that big technological breakthroughs, but all that explains how Supersonic are coming back. The reason why is less scientific safely. It's because very rich people want faster private jets. Once the company in Ariane started designing supersonic business jets for General Electric Overhead Martin, the winner of the huge NASA contract, is helping design and produce Ariane's AS2 plane. That startup is targeting 2023 for first flight, followed by a commercial debut in 2025. Another major player is Boom Supersonic, a startup called a Colorado that's building a fleet of supersonic jets for Virgin Airlines. Black Shaw, Chief Executive Officer and founder of Boom Aviation's a new era of connectedness for anyone who could afford it. My kids have a grandpa who lives in Hong Kong, and it's simply too far away for the decision very often. It turns into 6 or 7 hours overnight flight, and all of a sudden they can actually come close. Boom claims its aircraft can travel at a speed of Mach 2.2 for 1,451 miles per hour. Boom hopes to have a fleet of jets ready for passenger by 2020, and the average ticket will cost $5,000. But not everyone is convinced supersonic air travel is worth bringing back. The Concorde was a big polluter, bringing into 2 tons of fuel just to taxi and 4 times as much fuel per passenger. Is a Boeing 747 jumbo jet. It's unclear whether its new wave of planes will be any better. Boom, iron and other claimed fuel efficiency will improve, but the environmentalists are still alarmed by the resurge in popularity. Kurt Popp is the former executive director of Sierra Club that buries the square dead 4 times with any residents, and then when you hit the sonic boom, it gets worse and aviation is going to be pulled out of there and limiting fuel. But we are not going to be one of the outcomes of the climate. Girl said he's worried that investors are so focused on reviving supersonic jets that one stopped to ask why they are doing it. And this is merely and latest I have to take into account. Now the echoes for all the technical improvements. These new supersonic planes are on track to be every bit as luxurious as the Concorde. So if you are regularly flying first class, you could have some new faster opinions in future. But if you are stuck in coach with 80% of air travels, you will probably be glad just to get some